for the longest time, we ran gated content, and that was our way of capturing someone's email, because we know that they wouldn't be willing to give it if we just say, talk to someone.
Right.
And what we found over time is that when sales reaches out to the people who have downloaded content, they hear crickets. They get ghosted. And I think that is a very clear indication of the general public buyers saying, I'm not ready to talk to you, like, quit it. What you want to do is, in those first 2 stages, get someone to know, like, and trust your brand as fast as possible.
Hello, fellow marketers, leaders, and listeners. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Call to Action. I'm Janet Mesh, CEO of Intel and the host of this show. And each episode of Call to Action, we analyze, discuss the latest trends, tactics, hot takes in the B2B marketing industry. And we conclude every episode with one call to action for you. So you're going to really get some actionable things that you can take back to your team, your company, and incorporate into your own marketing strategy and programs. And today we're super excited. As you can see, Tucker and I are joined by a very special guest, AJ Wilcox. AJ is a LinkedIn Ads Pro and the founder of B2 Linked, a LinkedIn ads agency. He's managed over $150 million in spend on the platform. So I would say that they probably like him a lot, and has run hundreds of campaigns for his clients. So he has actually worked with 5 of the world's top 10 LinkedIn ads accounts. So he has a ton of learnings, insights that he's going to share today, and we're super excited to have him. He's also the host of his own show, LinkedIn Ads Show podcast, so definitely check that out. We got him here for an hour to give us all the insights. So welcome to the show, AJ. Welcome to Call to Action. If you wanted to kind of jump in, say hello, and do your own little introduction, you can go for it right now.
Oh, so stoked to be here. Thank you for having me. This has been on my bucket list for a long time, so thank you. I live in the great state of Utah in the US, and I started B2 Linked now over 10 and a half years ago. So I've been in the LinkedIn ads game for a while. You might be able to tell, but I'm very ADHD. And so when I very first started the agency, I wondered, like, how long am I actually going to stick with this? I still every day wake up so excited to jump in and do more LinkedIn ads. So 10 and a half years later, I'm still locked in and excited. So I guess that bodes well for LinkedIn ads.
Definitely. Congratulations. 10 years. That's incredible. Intel will be reaching its 7th year this August. So that's an incredible milestone. You think you picked the right industry to be in. So we're pumped to tap in. As you can see, Tucker, my co-host, is here. He's the growth marketing lead of Intel. And thanks to Tucker, he's been, chatting with AJ online and on LinkedIn, obviously. And then we had the pleasure of meeting AJ last year at the B2B Marketing Forum here in Boston, hosted by Marketing Profs. So we were all chatting in person, and then we were like, we need to record this next time. So here we are, super excited to be live and sharing the insights. So as I mentioned, AJ, you're going to share some insights. We also do some LinkedIn ad campaigns, run a lot of, especially on the organic side for clients too, building out kind of their whole digital marketing presence online. So I think kind of amongst the 3 of us will be pretty fun to share, a few different areas. So kind of our 3 topics that we were going to cover today is a proven approach for driving success for LinkedIn ads, especially kind of that full funnel approach, really kind of breaking it down from the top to the middle to the bottom of the funnel. I think, people say that works, it doesn't, but we see that it's still really effective, hint, hint. But also there's a really interesting LinkedIn report that AJ shared, and then from LinkedIn, and we're going to dive into some of that data, especially around the buying committee on B2B purchases. As we all know, it's continuing to get more complicated, unfortunately. So we want to share some, maybe some easier solutions for folks. And then the third final area we wanted to talk through today is how to think about thought leadership on LinkedIn, what that looks like, on the brand account versus individual accounts of your leadership team or even employees. And we're going to definitely share some examples along the way. As I mentioned, we like to make this as tactical, real examples as possible. We're going to dive into that. We also have a little bit of we've never done this before. I'm going to let Tucker explain. Your guys' conversation evolved into another niche. So you guys love LinkedIn And then AJ has another passion, which you can share, where we're going to add some fun to this episode.
Yes, indeed. So AJ, been a huge fan of yours for years and certainly knew about your LinkedIn ads passion, but it was only recently that I knew about your passion for root beer. So I am very excited. I think when we first met, you told me about your passion for root beer that really runs deep. So we on this show, as I'm passionate for hot ones, we're gonna kind of do a spin on that and sample 3 of your favorite root beers, which you have kindly provided to me. These root beers have been flown across the U.S. We had a meetup in a different state to make it happen. So I am really excited to test these out, experience you as not just a LinkedIn ads connoisseur, but a root beer connoisseur. So as we get into each of our 3 topics today, AJ, we can have you kick it off by doing a little sampling of root beer with you and me. I'm pumped. I think let's get
AJ some of that root beer sponsorship. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, AJ, here we are. I've got 3 root beers right by my side. Let's kick it off with one. What's the first root beer we're going to try?
All right. I think we need to try Sprecher. This is from Wisconsin. And funny story about Sprecher. I visited I had a speaking engagement in Wisconsin, and a friend was like taking me around, who was local, showing me around. And he took me to a convenience store and said, "You've got to try Sprecher while you're out here." He didn't know I liked root beer. He just was like, they have a whole line of sodas. Yeah. And I loved it so much. The next time I was out there, I ended up filling my suitcase absolutely full of Sprecher. I went late at night after the conference. I went and bought a case or something of this stuff off the shelf of a grocery store to get it home. One broke on the way home, so I have some clothes who smell like root beer. But the funniest thing was, after working so hard to bring it home, I found that my local dollar store carries this one. So may have been a little bit of a waste, but that's okay. Lots of people, there's a root beer subreddit on Reddit where we nerd out about different root beers. This seems to be there's not a whole lot of consensus. This seems to be the one that most have consensus around. It's really good. Kind of a good standard.
We're starting with the top. Look at this. Let's go. Top of the funnel, top of the root beer pyramid. Love it. Cheers. I guess just to preface, I don't have the root beer. I'm going to be the moderator of the root beer testing and the host of the show, but we'll get into buying committee convincing later. You can convince me.
I'll double preface, these are non-alcoholic root beers. We're staying clear-headed and sharp-minded for LinkedIn ads.
That's right.
Just for the kids watching at home. But yeah, Sprecher. Cheers, AJ. There you go. Oh yeah, classic, delicious.
So this one, you'll notice different from other root beers. A lot of the sweetness comes from honey rather than cane sugar.
Ooh,
and so it tastes a little maybe smoother. I don't know how else to say it, but there's lots of vanilla. Root beers tend to sit in 2 different camps. One will be very vanilla and one will be very licoricey. This is more on the vanilla side.
Oh, I feel like I would like that one. That's why I don't love root beer, because of the licorice flavor. Can't hang with licorice.
This is very vanilla-y, and I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a perfect transition. How do we make our LinkedIn ads not vanilla? Give them a little honey, a little sweetness, a little, some of that pizzazz.
AJ, now that we've got the root beer flowing, you've launched hundreds of LinkedIn ad campaigns. You've probably done, I don't know, thousands, if not tens of thousands of ads at this point. And recently you shared with us that you've developed a bit of a playbook for kind of approaching LinkedIn ad campaigns and really structuring them so that they're designed to convert. And you've referred to this as kind of a 3-stage funnel approach. So I'd love for you to just kind of walk us through this and tell us all about it.
Yeah, and this really stems from the last 10 years of trying things for clients that didn't work and then scratching my head wondering why it didn't work. So at the beginning of the agency, the predominant idea of how to convert someone from social media ads was just to target this cold audience and say, come get a demo, come talk to us, and try to capture them that way. And, we're all busy people. we're not willing to just willy-nilly hop on a call with someone, meet with a sales rep who might potentially try to strong arm you or pull a high pressure sales pitch. We're just not willing to do that until we already know, like, and trust the brand. So then I think that we know that just going right for the kill is what I'll call it, to your cold audience, like, it's not going to work. For 99% of advertisers, it won't work.
Yep.
The next stage that people went through was like, well, what if we give them free content? Let's do downloadable ebooks, guides that are gated behind a form. And then when someone downloads our content, sales will reach out, attempt to start a conversation. And I would say that worked for a few years, but now people have become so, I don't know what the word is, like, so anti-sales. They're like, I know this is coming. It's not going to work on me. They're skeptical. And so,
the way I look at it too is like, the buyer wants to be educated. Like, they want to educate themselves and they want to show up to the table pretty much having all that information. They don't want to have this, like what you're saying, AJ, is like, they don't want to have this like conversation where they don't feel prepared to go like kind of head to head on the value of a product or a solution or service. They want to have a pretty like higher level conversation once they're actually willing to get on a call.
Exactly. Yeah. And so because of this, I've heard a lot of people who've tried advertising on LinkedIn saying it's not an acquisition channel, it's a brand awareness channel, which I fully disagree with. It is definitely a brand awareness channel because we're able to target people who we know have never heard of our product before, and we get to introduce it to them. And in the same way, we also get to target exactly the right people, so we know we're not wasting valuable impressions on people who would never be a good customer for us. So yes, it's great for introducing and getting that brand awareness, but it is also a very good channel at getting the conversion. And we know that no channel works in its own silo. There's all your different marketing is going to play together. But yeah, if you go through this process or one like it, where it is a multi-stage funnel where you just keep increasingly giving your prospect more and more education, getting them to know, like, and trust your company more, then by the time you do ask, you're going to be that much more likely for them to raise their hand and say, yeah, sure, I'll talk to someone. I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I think you have the power and ability within LinkedIn to target really each stage of the funnel and nurture someone through the entire buying experience. So to say it's just brand awareness or just acquisition, like, no, not at all. You can't do one without the other. So I love that. And yeah, let's dive in specifically, AJ, because you've got kind of some specific ad formats, campaigns, and approaches at each stage of the funnel. So I'd love for you to bring us deeper. Tell us more. Take us through each stage and what it means and how it works.
Yeah, so this 3-stage funnel is very much aided by the fact that LinkedIn has really, really good retargeting abilities. Better than, I mean, I'm used to LinkedIn being like 4 years behind everything Meta does and just being okay with that. When I went to go check out Meta's and Google's retargeting methods that they had, I was like, whoa, LinkedIn is head and shoulders above everyone here. So the very first touch, we know that content that comes from an individual is going to be more engaging than content that comes from a company. Because when you're looking through your news feed, I mean, there's a reason that organically in your news feed, you'll see very few company posts, but you'll see a lot of people's posts.
Yep.
And in the last couple years, LinkedIn have released this newest ad format called thought leader ads, where we can promote a person's post. And then, spoiler alert, we can retarget if it's video, we could say anyone who's watched more than 50% of one of these videos, let's graduate them down a stage. Or if it's text, anyone who engages with this ad in any way, let's graduate them down. And so we have this ability on these posts that have really, really high engagement rates to graduate people down very efficiently and at very low cost, much lower cost than we've ever been able to build a funnel before. So that first step, have a good touch with an individual through these thought leader ads.
Like this individual right here. This is a thought leader post from you that we thought would be fun to share. But I see you doing this all the time. You're on my feed and I see you posting content, boosting it and really putting out your expertise and your thought leadership on LinkedIn ads. And we thought, well, what better example to show than himself? So Yeah, I love that.
Totally. Yeah, and when it's video, I have all kinds of different tips, but most people, like 80% of people, are going to watch a video on LinkedIn with the sound off. So be prepared for that. Make sure you put subtitles, and a much better move is to make sure that these are like, I call them TikTok style subtitles, where they're big across the screen, they're animated. That's really going to help people stick on a little bit longer. Kind of like you see here on screen, those aren't what I would call big. But yeah, that is going to help your video perform a lot better.
100%. I have a really quick, I'm so curious. Are you, because I find that like a big part of the conversation on LinkedIn and in marketing is like not including a link in your post. So like if you have a video and a link, are you seeing anything with that it still is like okay to keep a link in the post, or are you guys starting to see that like you're not driving folks off the platform?
When you run one of these ads, the thought leader ads, the only way that we can run them so far, I hope LinkedIn changes this, is in the engagement objective.
Right, exactly.
In the engagement objective, any interaction counts as a click. And so if you have a link out somewhere, that's great. Like you hope as many people as you can get will actually click on that link. But more often than not, you're going to be paying for likes and comments and see more when the top copy gets truncated. So what I would suggest doing is whoever is your thought leader, when they post the post originally, don't have a link, because then LinkedIn is probably going to treat it better and give it wider reach. And then as soon as you're ready to sponsor, have them go in, hit edit on the post, add the link.
Yeah, that's what we advise people to. Like you can't, once you boost it, you can't edit it. So you got to do any adjustments before that.
Totally.
Fascinating.
Love it. Let's get into stage number 2, AJ, downloadable assets. Tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, we're here for the hot takes. I feel like the root beer is cold, but the hot takes may be hot.
All right. So when someone has a first initial touch with a brand, usually one of your thought leaders, you now want to get that know, like, and trust factor from the individual. You want to pass that authority over to the company, because all of their future interactions with ads are, the vast majority are going to come from the company. And I like to give them a little taste, something like a tip, a trick, a strategy, something in your stage 1. And then in your stage 2, now you want to give them a little bit more. If you gave them a tip or a trick in the first one that was maybe like 30, 40 seconds of your time, now in the second touch, when you've earned a little bit more of their attention, this might be a good time to be like, hey, sign up for one of our webinars, or read this guide, or read our blog post, or watch this YouTube video, a longer video, something more that they can like sink their teeth into and reveal more of like, what are their problems and how you have solutions for their problems.
Yeah. You're saying so many things that have my mind churning, but just the thing you said early on of as we get to the stage, we want to pass that authority from the thought leader to the brand. I think that is so smart, using that thought leader as the entry point to capture attention. Naturally, as you said, that's how, when you're on LinkedIn's feed, most of the time you're seeing people. But once you've got that initial attention, passing that along to the brand. And that feels like a real big change from how it used to be, like you said, where people are initially launching this kind of ad right at the top of the funnel, but now it's more of a mid-funnel play.
Totally.
So yeah, I really like that. AJ, we were talking too a little bit before we started the recording of gated versus ungated. And at Aimtel, we've seen value in both, but certainly in this model, I think there's a real value in exploring ungated. And it sounds like that's been kind of where you're going. Could you tell us a little more about how you think about those two areas?
Yeah, for the longest time, we ran gated content, and that was our way of capturing someone's email, because we know that they wouldn't be willing to give it if we just say, talk to someone.
Right.
And what we found over time is that when sales reaches out to the people who have downloaded content, they hear crickets. They get ghosted. And I think that is a very clear indication of the general public buyers saying, I'm not ready to talk to you. Like, quit it. Now, we do have
I haven't even opened the email you sent me to read the thing I downloaded, but I got a phone call from your sales team.
yeah, maybe a little too aggressive, too much too soon. So I will caveat this by saying we do have clients that gated content is working for them. They get someone to download content, sales follows up with them, and they get pipeline. But I will say that's rare at this point. More often than not, what you want to do is in those first 2 stages, get someone to know, like, and trust your brand as fast as possible. With gated content, let's say you have an amazing piece of gated content that gets a 30% conversion rate. What that means is you're going to pay for 100 people to get there to the point where they say, this looks interesting to me. And then you're going to turn 70 of them away because they're not willing to fill out the form. So what I love doing is having ungated content here at stage 2, where it's like, we're going to pay for 100 of you to get here and enjoy the content. And 100 of you are going to be able to, because it's not gated, it's not going to turn you away. And then they really get to sink their teeth into your content, learn more about your company, their problems, all the stuff that's going to help them really come to love you.
So smart. I mean, if the goal here is education at this point, let's make it as easy as possible to educate and to make that education accessible to anybody who wants it and not put barriers in the way.
And don't gate the knowledge.
Don't gate the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I could go off on a whole different tangent here, but it does make me think of attribution and how I think even myself, and I know a lot of others in the past, I've thought like, if we're going to do marketing attribution, everything has to be in the CRM. We have to be able to see all the touch points every way down the CRM. And that's great. But I think where I've come lately, and I think where Angel has come, is actually you can keep your contacts within LinkedIn and you can assess the touch points right within LinkedIn and show that customer journey there. At a certain point, which I think is where we're going with stage 3, they'll get into your CRM, they'll get there. But I think it's actually really valuable to do the nurture you're talking about right in LinkedIn, and then also know how to just show the touch points, who's following, who's engaging, and just look at that right in LinkedIn and be able to share that with leadership or sales, rather than thinking, oh, it always has to be in the CRM, because that's just actually going to be limiting for you, I think.
Oh, yeah. And with LinkedIn, we can retarget any sort of touch interaction with our ads with 100% match rate, which is incredible. As soon as they leave LinkedIn, of course, once they get to your website, you can retarget them with every platform, but every platform is plagued with the same issue of retargeting right now, which is it's near 100% reliant on the cookie being in someone's browser, and the internet is waging war against cookies. It becomes, this retargeting audience that you're building, it becomes like trying to fill up a leaky bucket. And so I prefer doing all the nurture on LinkedIn where I can control it and have 100% certainty I'm reaching the right people at the right time. Whereas when they go to the website, you lose it. You have shrinking audiences.
Right. And the platforms are encouraging you to nurture and engage them on the platform first until they're really ready to go, to the full party on your website. It's not, it's all flipped. We were all trying to always get people to the website, but now it's like we want to keep them on LinkedIn, and then when they're ready, they go to the website or they talk to someone on the team.
Yeah, totally.
Well, let's talk about that full party. Stage 3. This is where things get real fun. AJ, tell us what we got going on what's that third stage of the funnel here?
All right. So stage 3 is very much when you've earned the right at this point to ask them to meet with someone, get a demo, do something that's a little higher in friction. We have built funnels more than 3 stages. We've built a 4, a 5, and even a 6 stage funnel in an effort to further educate and nurture. But most of those of you listening aren't going to have multi 6-figure a month budgets that you can adequately fill funnel stages and get to the point where your 6th stage has enough people in it to run. But what I've found, I ran a study here this last quarter that was totally crazy to me. I had 2 different clients. They were high spending, where we built out this full 3-stage funnel, where to get to the 3rd stage, you had to interact with both a stage 1 and a stage 2 ad. So it's the same people in these differing levels of how they've interacted with you before. And we did the same test. We ran a demo focused ad in all 3 stages. So our stage 1 got a demo single image ad plus a conversation ad inviting them to a demo. Stage 2 got the same thing. Stage 3 got the same thing. And what was so crazy to me is both of these accounts, totally separate industries, totally separate targeting, we found the same metric. And that was our stage 3 converted 5 times higher than stage 2. And stage 2 converted 5 times higher than stage 1. And this was the missing piece for us, because when I go to convince a client, like, hey, it takes time to nurture people and they're impatient, like, I want it now. This is the way to show them that every additional touch that you do, it's an investment. It's an investment in getting more and more efficiency down funnel.
Right, because everyone wants to skip to stage 3 without doing. And but they put like a ton of money in stage 3 when if you just slice and dice it a little bit more in different, like the 1 and 2 at least. That's what you're saying. Then you're actually going to get a higher conversion rate.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Wow.
Amazing. And
thanks for figuring that out. That's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible.
Now we can use this and be like, look, AJ figured it out,
Yeah, it makes sense though. That like we see that as well, where if you're running brand ads that, they're not too fluffy, but they're at least like have that core messaging to that specific audience. And it's like solution or pain point focus. And then simultaneously running that with like you're saying a demo ad or some sort of conversion type ad. It does perform the best. It like those running simultaneously instead of just only putting all your money and focus into the conversion part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm getting thirsty for that second root beer, AJ, but I gotta ask a couple quick questions here, because I think this piece is so critical, right? It's like this is the point where it's like really getting them into sales, the CRM, all that stuff. I guess I got a bit of a two-parter for you, because you've talked about you've got to build up each audience at each stage. So on the one hand, when we get to the in-mail ad stage, I'm curious to know, like, roughly what audience size do you feel you need to really be effective? Because I imagine if you only have 5 people at this stage, it's pretty low. And then I guess on the second half of that is I get a lot of messages like these all the time, these sponsored messages. A lot of them aren't really my cup of tea. We probably all do and ignore them. So I'm curious to hear both audience size, but then also what have you seen really makes for an effective ad at this stage as well?
Perfect questions. LinkedIn won't actually run any ad until the audience is at least 300 people. So when we onboard a new client, we'll build out all 3 of these stages, knowing full well that, like, yeah, we'll launch stage 3, but it's probably not even going to have an audience large enough to run to show its first impression for like a month or a month and a half. Yeah. So that's what I'll do is I'll set it up and say, okay, once you hit, you're at 299 people, the second you hit that 300th person, cool, I want you to start serving. I want to be in front of these audience members as often as I can. As for what's effective, what I run in stage 3 are conversation ads. There's another option called message ads, but I don't run them because conversation ads can do everything they can do plus more. But what I find is when you're approaching someone who, they have some limited experience with your brand, when you approach them with something short like a text, they'll read it and they're going to be a lot more likely to interact with it. But if it's longer, if you're like, hey, here's the history of our company and here's all about our product, people are going to look at this giant wall of text and go, I don't have time for this. Even if they like your brand, they're going to go, I don't have time. You're not respecting my time. So,
and those are most of the ads I get. I feel like they're little mini novels, and I'm like, that's my bedtime reading. I have my own books. I don't need these novels coming at me during the day.
Exactly. Keep it short. Keep high interest.
Yep, love it. Cool. Amazing. I mean, this is the playbook right here. I think we've done similar things at Aimtel, but I'm excited to kind of sharpen our approach based off this and just kind of help kind of keep finding learnings. Let's move on to both topic and root beer number 2. Let's start with the root beer, start with the good stuff. AJ, which one we going with now?
Okay, I think we need to try, this one's called Soda Beers root beer. Soda Beers, I'm reaching locally here. This is a Utah-based soda brand. And what's cool about them, they became famous for a soda called Apple Beer. So many of you that are shared all over the country, many of you may know Apple Beer, and then they made their own root beer. So because this is Utah, I had to represent. Let's try it out.
Let's try it out. Represent Utah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So our next topic's going to be around the buying committee, and I feel like we're in this perfect position. I'm not drinking root beer, so you guys really need to start to pitch me on the second one. Start deciding between the three which one is going to be the favorite by the end of the episode.
How do you involve leadership in, the root beer choice? I don't know if we know much about the security procedures or operation procedures of this root beer production, but I feel like maybe that's a way to get CEO buy-in there.
And I do have to say, root beer is very much, I don't know if I'd call it an acquired taste, because a lot of kids like it too, but it is totally okay that you don't love root beer. I lived in Ukraine for a couple years, and
cool,
and I even had my parents shipped me like root beer extract so I could have root beer over there, because they don't have it there. And everyone I meet from Europe who has tried root beer, they go, "Oh, that tastes like cough syrup." They don't love
like super sweet stuff as much.
Yeah.
So what's the flavor palette of this one? Like, what's the flavor profile of this one?
All right, this one's
versus the other one.
This one's also very vanilla. They even have like a vanilla bean on the front. This one I would call it just really smooth. It's quite similar to Sprecher. Like, I probably should have picked something that departed a little bit. But Tucker, what's your take on this one?
So I really like it. You said smooth, and that really, I agree. Like, the first one had a little more like a kick, spiciness to it, but this one just nice and smooth. I still am like marveling over that some lean more vanilla and some lean more licorice, and I just think that's fascinating. And I think I'm a vanilla guy. I feel like I'm probably in general, and also just with root beer. So
the easy way to tell is if you like A&W more than Barks. A&W is more vanilla, Barks is more licorice. So difference between the two.
I have a question, like marketing question about the pack, like the bottle. Both bottles are similar. Like, should root beer be in that particular bottle for it truly to be root beer, like a glass brown bottle, or does it not matter?
Cans don't last as long. So you can have a bottle on a shelf for like 4 years, but a can would only last for like a year and a half. So I think it's a longevity choice for the brand who's producing it. But plastic,
and maybe quality, right? Like, wouldn't it taste better? Or
I mean, definitely more than plastic. If you have soda out of a plastic bottle, like it tastes plasticky.
Yes. Yeah.
So
avoid microplastics as much as you can.
We have no idea what they do, but can't be good, right?
Definitely not good.
There you go. There's your environmental call to action right there.
But I think we can go into our next topic then. On the second root beer, go into the next topic. As I mentioned, we want to talk about the buying committee, especially in business to business. That's very much, you have to, that's why it's more complicated, because there's more people that we need to pitch to and convince. And as AJ, you're explaining, build that trust with them. So AJ did share over there in every call to action episode, we like to look at some research or studies that have come to market recently, kind of see where things are shifting. And the one that we will talk through next was, I'm going to just show it on the screen briefly, but it's the building brand trust in an era of innovation by LinkedIn, actually. And in this article and this report, they really hone in and explain and show that the buying process is becoming more complex, and it's growing, especially in terms of senior buying committees. There's more folks involved at the senior level. It says here 61% of buyer groups have more than 9 people. That's a lot of people to convince and convert. If someone doesn't eat lunch that day, that could throw everything out the window. They don't have their root beer. It's a lot to figure out. So I think a big part is marketing. I would say marketing and sales. This is not just on marketing to figure out it. This is where I see a perfect collaboration between marketing and sales, is adapting to how to build the brand, demonstrate this expertise of your company, product, or services, and then tailoring that message to all these diverse stakeholders. So I think I'm excited to talk more about this kind of trust factor we've been already touching on in our first topic. We can zoom out for a moment, AJ, if you wanted to kind of bring us through this of kind of what your perspective is, what were some of your big takeaways and what you're kind of starting to see this show up kind of in the technical side of running LinkedIn ads and just helping your clients reach these folks?
Yeah, the buyer's committee is really hard because we as marketers, we almost have no insight into it whatsoever. What happens is in our ads, in our marketing, we'll have a champion, a point of contact who needs what it is that we sell within a company, and we have a relationship with them. And then they go through this last step of like, okay, I need to clear it with finance. I need to clear it with procurement. I need to clear it with my boss, my boss's boss, the CEO. I mean, whoever it is. And if any of those parties have an issue with the software or the purchase, they quash it. And there's nothing that the salesperson could have done differently. They're wondering like, did I say something wrong?
Right.
What was the process? No, you had this individual point of contact. They were ready to buy. It got squashed by someone else. And it's so easy to squash a deal if the CEO is like, sorry, I have different priorities right now. Like we've frozen budgets on these kinds of purchases. Boom. Like no matter what the salesperson does, no matter what you as a marketer do, it's gone. So
right.
That's why it's so important to have ads that are targeting the whole buyer's committee. And you don't have to nurture them the same way that you nurture, I call them your pain feeler, the person who feels the pain that you solve. You don't have to give them the same nurture sequences, the same kinds of ads. More often than not, what you're looking for is just when your proposal comes across the desk of someone in finance or someone in IT or whatever, if they look at it and say, oh, I've heard of that brand before. They must be legit. Yeah, that feels safe to me. Versus,
right.
I've never heard of them. This could be a scam. Like, that's not what
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, LinkedIn in that report, they pulled out a little snippet, and what it said was growing your company's reputation as a trusted partner among all potential buyers means that when a buying process begins, your brand is the one that it's easy for them to find consensus around.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're saying. Like it's instead of it becoming this whole point of having to like pretty much whine and, explain who we are, do the whole show, they already have that understanding and they've seen it in different places, not just what their team has told them. I think that's a big part of it. Is that you also want to be part of controlling that narrative, not just relying on what someone is saying on behalf of your company or your solution.
Huge.
AJ, I have kind of a question on this, and I feel like I'm almost getting meta with like talking about the buying committee of the buying committee. But so I obviously wholeheartedly agree with this approach, and we've done a lot of this ourselves at Aimtel. But I can imagine, and I know from experience, that getting buy-in to even do something like this can be hard because it makes sense where I love your pain feeler, right? That person, you have a bit of a conversion point with them, you're nurturing them down the funnel. And for a non-marketer, it can be more clear as to the results I'm getting with those ads. But if I'm leadership or I'm sales and you're telling me like, oh, we're going to start marketing to IT and security, I might start to wonder like, well, what are the results I should even be looking there? How will I know it's working? And why should I even really do this? So I'm curious to know how you convince other people to kind of do this and go along with it. And then how you report and show success, especially given that really long buying cycle where you might be advertising these guys for months and, there's no progress yet.
Oh, Tucker, that is the real question. It is like, from a marketing perspective, when we are showing ads, the metrics that we get, we see cost per, we see click-through rate, we see reach, things like that. And none of those metrics actually describe what's happening when you are occupying some mind space from someone. So the metric that I watch to see if this is working, I look at close rate and I look at time to close. So if you're, let's say your normal buying cycle is like from proposal to close is, a month or something. When we segment just the ads, the leads that originated from LinkedIn, before and after we started running this kind of a target, can we watch that shrink? Can we see fewer barriers coming across people approving the purchase internally? And then higher close rates. But again, like that close rate could be influenced by anything. This is so hard to actually test, but I think we all know intuitively it's a good move. It just becomes like, is it worth our budget?
Right. Yeah. And I guess, and that totally, and I think that's I love looking at sales and revenue as kind of honestly a primary metric of, hey, is everything we're doing actually helping us, make money here? Because that's at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. So I love that. And then I guess just on that same note, AJ, I'm almost curious about like the mechanics of how you go about this, because like we're saying, buying committees increasing, maybe 9 different people on the committee. What's your approach in terms of actually sussing out at any given company? Should we be going after finance? Should we be going after operations, going after IT? Is it a company by company basis where you learn who the people on the committee is? Like, how do you go about that and then really build out the ads to target the buying committee?
I think you need to start by talking to sales, because sales are going to be the ones who are able to say, oh yeah, I lost this deal because someone in finance quashed it. I lost a deal because the CEO shot it down. I lost the deal because someone in security or IT said it didn't meet their threshold for security, whatever that is. You kind of collect, who are these personas who have buy-in on this deal, who have the ability to quash? And then I would start out with one general campaign that is just targeting the companies who are, we'll say a company who is a lead, but has not yet closed yet.
Okay. Target accounts, kind of that kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yep. So these are going to be, and that's going to be a fairly small audience. So you don't have to worry about this being like a huge portion of budget or anything.
Right.
And then I would add in, what are those job functions, the departments that can quash? And then what are the seniority levels of people? So this is probably going to be like director and above,
right.
Those job functions that we've mentioned. I think that's the right way to start. Like this doesn't benefit you as a marketer. It's a marketer's going to say, I am responsible for my cost per sales qualified lead. That is it. Anything that happens after, sorry, sales. This is like, that's your job.
Right.
No,
that's not the right.
No, because exactly. That needs to go in the past of like the lack of collaboration. It's like, it's not a handoff.
Yeah.
It is continuous collaboration until it converts into a customer. And then there should be even more, like customer lifecycle marketing. But agreed, like that's where we do this with our clients, where when we're running ads for them, we meet with their sales team and then we're like hearing for them or making them send over any like recorded conversations they've had or sharing with us, like, what have you heard? What objections are you getting? And then we take that and put that messaging back into different ads and try to change it up. And it works really well because then it's like we're testing what they did or what they're hearing and trying to hit on some of those objections like earlier on before they're even having those conversations again.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. This is, I talk sometimes about like, how can we get the sales and the marketing departments who feel so much animosity? Like there's just so much like competition and between them. How can you get them to hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Because that's the only way that we're going to move the company forward, is when both of us are working together. This is one of those ways where marketing gets to say, hey, I'm going to give 2% of my budget to something that isn't going to benefit me. It's only helping you, sales team. Right. Like, and sales teams know this and appreciate it and know that we're working together.
Absolutely. And like go after the information too, being like, hey guys, like I want to get on this call. I want to hear, you got to give me the information and then we'll test out some stuff for you to see like what's actually like we have like pretty much marketers have access to like whole live testing ground to give that insight to sales.
Oh yeah.
And that's super valuable. But it's also like kind of coming into like that messaging positioning too, like in the messaging, the approach and understanding who you're going after. And that's where I think that more working together has to happen. It's like almost like, okay, we created this content. And as you just shared, AJ, like that's not really effective anymore. Like marketing's so focused on creating content that's actually not helping. And then sales is just getting pissed that marketing's spending all their time creating stuff that's not helpful for them.
Yep. Which is such a hard position for us to be put in because we don't actually know as marketers what's going to work until we test it. And how can you test a huge piece of content that takes months of research and tens of thousands of dollars to create? Like there has to be some like understanding from both sides and some testing, trialing along the way, trying to predict how something's going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think we will definitely share this report like in the show notes, because there's a lot in there, like even more than we even touched on. But there is one aspect of it that I did want to transition us into, is like on the thought leadership side, because kind of going back up, we already touched on this at the beginning. We're really making sure that you're positioning not just like the brand as an expert, but the people that are working at your company, like your leadership, salespeople, anyone kind of involved in that front-facing experience for a customer or prospect. So, do we want to kick it off with the final root beer?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. We can share that, and then we can we can talk through thought leadership on LinkedIn. Oh, look at this bottle. It's like nice and modern. I'm feeling this one. Okay.
Yeah. So this one's by a company called Boylan in New York. And I find that you can get this root beer in a lot more places than you'd expect. I'm anxious. I'm going to go ahead and pop this.
Pop it
Tucker, I want to hear your initial take, because this one is quite different.
Okay. And I will say New York is near and dear to my heart. So if, you hear me belting
biased, maybe.
this, but we'll see. Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. Ooh, it's got kind of like a refreshing aftertaste, I want to say. It like kind of stays with me. And yeah, I'm feeling kind of...
Tucker's dancing right now. I think we know his number one.
Tucker's got quite a sugar high after drinking 3 root beers in quick succession and talking LinkedIn ads too. But
I know all the niches are fired up.
Now, is this a little more licorice-y, AJ, or still on the small side?
Yeah, I think I'd probably put it more in the licorice camp. But what's so interesting about this, and you picked up on it immediately, it's the aftertaste.
Yeah.
It tastes like wintergreen. Wintergreen is like the last note that you taste.
Yes.
This almost tastes like drink a root beer and then immediately pop like a wintergreen lifesaver afterwards. Like it almost,
I'm so happy that I said that. I felt like such an imposter being like, I think this is what's happening, but I'm like, yeah, okay. Trust your taste. Trust your literal gut.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm like feeling like I need to see. You're convincing me. I'm like, I need to go try this one. I think this is one I'm most convinced on potentially.
That's pretty good.
Even though I like more vanilla, but we'll see.
It is quite refreshing. Yeah, like you said, it's like afterwards you've got like I don't even need to brush my teeth anymore. I'll just drink Boylan's root beer and
All right, we're not gonna share our favorite yet. So you gotta marinate on it, keep drinking, and then we'll share at the end of the episode. Yeah. All right, nice. Well, the third final cold one of root beer has been consumed, and now we're going to talk about our final topic around thought leadership on LinkedIn. We're going to share some insights with you. Tucker and I kind of prepare this up, and then obviously want to bring you into your perspective, AJ. We know you run a lot of this, especially at the top of the funnel, stage 1, seeing the effectiveness of it. But just kind of hit us with some more kind of stats and things that we're seeing, which is really interesting. So we see it's really effective of kind of running like at this brand awareness level. We've been talking about this a lot in this episode, making sure you kind of have that awareness running of the brand, but also that kind of ties in on the thought leadership side while simultaneously running your bottom of funnel campaigns. And so 90% of buyers, see, I mentioned this before, but 90% of B2B buyers know who they want to buy from before they start their research, or they have some sort of idea. But I think that goes back into that education piece that we talk about a lot, is that people want to be educated. They want to like do the research. So you need to give them that information. So as you were sharing, AJ, like not gating all of your content is really important, because if you have that available for them, you're always answering their question. They're going to trust and like you more, or really start to understand, okay, these people know what the hell they're talking about. And same goes on the thought leadership side. So like 73% of decision makers trust thought leaderships more than the marketing and product materials. So that's pretty wild. This is a study actually by LinkedIn and a company called Edelman who did this together from 2024 B2B Thought Leadership Impact Report. We can share that in the show notes as well. So that's pretty wild. And I think just proves our point further that like folks want to hear from other people. Even if you're sharing that like kind of marketing content or product information, if it's kind of coming from someone in your company, then they are very much going to, it's going to resonate more. And we actually saw this. So we recently did an experiment of our own. We ran services for a client, and they are doing boosted, this is like engagement campaigns. So we ran for them a thought leadership post and a brand post. So the first one of them is like from their head of the organization. This is Outshift by Cisco. It's like Cisco's incubation department engine of the company. And then they have like the brand Outshift LinkedIn page. So it was the same budget, same promotion, same time frame. Everything was the same besides the type of like post we did. And what was really interesting, as you can see here, is that the thought leader, Vjoy, his post performed 3 times better, had a higher engagement than the brand one, even though everything was the same. So we're really seeing in the show up that like very much the person, the people on the feed, the faces on the feed are the ones that are resonating and what people are engaging with. But not even maybe, I think that's also kind of part of on the platform side is important, is that LinkedIn's also, kind of putting a lot of that behind. Like this is the type of content that they want on their platform too, and want people to engage with as well. So it's definitely what we've been advising clients. I don't know if Tucker, you want to add a little bit more context to this, and then definitely want to hear if you're seeing similar stuff or maybe even different things, AJ. But I don't know if there's anything I missed, Tucker, you wanted to kind of chat through briefly.
No, I think you hit it. And I'm still fired up about AJ's framing of you want to basically capture folks with thought leadership and then pass that authority to the brand. I'm definitely going to steal that, but I will cite you, AJ. But I think that's such a good way to think about it. And we do this a lot for clients. How are you posting, promoting from your brand? And then how are you doing it with thought leadership? I think some of these things are kind of intuitive, but it's good to write it out and lay it out. Obviously, on the brand side, you want to be that centralized resource for your specific industry, your specific expertise. The stuff we're putting out there is a little more curated, a little more branded, or a lot more curated, a lot more branded sometimes. And then also we often recommend on the brand side to really lean into a variety of visuals and formats. Carousels we see working extraordinarily well on the brand side. Infographics too, sharing things like case studies in more interactive kind of unique ways. Whereas the thought leadership, that's where, again, this stuff is a little more personal stories, how-tos, hot takes. And I think this one's really important too, kind of unpolished and authentic. We've had clients where they want to post some really highly visual, engaging graphic. And it's like, okay, maybe, but also it's okay to just do something that's a little bit more off the cuff, feels a little bit more real and natural. And then we threw this one in here too, because this is actually something that we advise clients on a lot is don't sleep on comments when you're doing thought leadership. I think it's easy to just be like, I'm going to put out my own post. And then, I don't know, you don't get that engagement. But a really good way to, especially to get started with thought leadership, is join in on a conversation that's already happening and weigh in and provide a really thoughtful comment that actually has insightful ideas, maybe asks a question. Don't just be like, love it, sounds great. But that's a really good entry point. And then as you comment more, then when you actually do your own post, they're going to show up more as well. So these are just kind of a few things that how we kind of advise folks to do brand awareness and thought leadership. But AJ, I'd be curious to hear, what's worked for you and how you just think about that relationship between brand and thought leadership in general.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the comments. It used to be that you could only see how many views or impressions a post got when it was your own. So you can see that someone else got a whole bunch of likes and comments, but you can't tell how many people actually saw. And that's still the case. But in the last few months, LinkedIn has rolled out this thing where now you can see the impression count of your comments.
Yeah.
And now people are starting to figure out like, oh, if I go and leave meaningful comments, engage in a conversation, my comment can get a lot of views and I didn't even have to be the one who came up with the post. So
right.
Love that approach. And it's, if your CEO is the thought leader post that you start promoting, like, yes, absolutely. Let him or her know that they should be responding to every comment because that's super important. But then you as a marketer, actually anyone, you can go see like who are the people who have liked, what's the identity of the people who've commented, and then that can be something like, hey, let's have the BDRs or sales team start like reaching out to these people. Let's connect with them. If they went out of their way to like or comment on an ad, good heavens, like they're ready, right?
That's it right there. I mean, that's another marketing sales alignment. I've had this conversation a few times recently. That's a beautiful, I think, kind of connection that can be made, whereas like, hey, marketing's helping sales team or leadership do thought leadership posts. We're then finding specific people who might be good buyers or prospects who are engaging with those posts, send them back to sales and leadership and be like, hey, great person to reach out to. And then you're really giving that beautiful assist, that Wayne Gretzky level assist that gets people gets the sales team right where they want to be. So wow, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. The other point that I sometimes hear marketers get caught up on, especially brand marketers who, if they have a separate budget for brand awareness, there's almost like they talk about it like it's just something that they drop. It's a commodity. Tell me, what are the CPMs that I'm going to get here? And I think that's the wrong way to think about it. Like, yes, we can show a banner ad with our logo on it a certain number of times, and we could probably quote you a CPM that it's going to be, but I would say that is the least effective way to think about your brand building budget. Because if you can introduce something that is interesting to people, interesting enough that they will engage with or click on it, that means that your initial brand awareness touch is going to be that much more effective. So I would encourage any of you who are kind of in this mindset, thinking about it in terms of, okay, what are CPMs? I just want to get my logo in front of people. Instead, let's put posts and content in front of them that they want to engage with. And I could not care less what my CPM is on a LinkedIn thought leader ad, because I can get my cost per engagement down below like 50, 60 cents. And my CPM might look like it's $300. You would say that's a terrible investment for brand awareness, but I would say on a cost per engaged clicker, a cost per retargetable user, that was so much better of a use of your brand dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just goes back to the point that's like, you need to stay top of mind. That was from the LinkedIn report. It's like, what is like your playbook and your strategy to stay top of mind with these folks pretty consistently and constantly, honestly. I think I've heard this from clients, and when we work with their sales team, and they're like, it's the best. They've literally said to me, like, it's the best when I can call someone or reach out to someone, and one of the first things they say to me is like, oh, I've heard of you guys, or I've seen you guys before, like you're everywhere, or like I've seen your posts. Like that's like immediately, that's exactly what they want to hear. But you can only do that, to your point, AJ, if like you're investing in really caring about that kind of quality of the content and the consistency, not just the CPM.
Yes. And just because someone saw an impression doesn't mean that they actually paid attention to it or that it sunk in at all.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who just scroll past stuff, but when they engage, when they click, when they like, when they comment, all of those things, like, oh, I know I earned a little bit more mind share with them.
Right. I'm not gonna lie, one of my guilty pleasures is to sometimes, I'm not like watching exactly what they're doing, but like from very far away in public, some people, like I scroll fast, but like some people go fast. Like they're just like going, like hitting it, like, and I'm like, wow, they're, to your point, I don't even know if they're reading or what are they, I don't know what they're doing, like, it's fascinating. So it's just a quick recap, because we've covered a lot of ground today, and thank you all for tuning in. But I think some of our top takeaways that we've already touched on, that you can kind of take is, number one, invest in different types of LinkedIn ad campaigns. Really that important of like building, sustaining a brand reputation and expertise, and using paid, but also organic content. I think that's, a lot of things we're talking about, it can go both ways. Really investing in that thought leadership and looking at it across the funnel. And I think finally, I think maybe I'll start with my call to action, and then transition is like, try something new. I think very much, we try to just play in what we know and don't want to test and iterate and kind of go out of our comfort zone. So Tucker tried three new root beers, and I think at the end of this hour, I've been convinced that I need to change my mind on root beer. So I'm going to go take that and go try some of these options that AJ generously shared today. So do you guys want to kick it off? What do you want to share? Okay, you both can do it. Both share what was your favorite one. You want to start, Tucker? What was your favorite root beer out of the three?
Sure. So loved all three. Thank you, AJ. This has been quite an experience. I was between 1 and 3. And that
you show them what was one. What was
yeah. Okay, so one was Spreckers.
Oh, right.
Spreckers
Okay.
Dragon, yeah. And 3 was Boylan with that wintergreen kind of aftertaste that I loved. But I really like a good kick. And I think the Spreckers gave me a nice little kick up front. You know, not that it's spicy like spicy food, but I do like a little like, okay, I got something going on here. So I think Spreckers is number 1 for me.
Nice.
Gonna have to get some more of these.
Nice. I feel like
Now,
AJ approves.
Yeah, where does this Spreckers hail from?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay, gotcha. So make a trip to the Midwest and get some Spreckers. But yeah.
Midwest, they know their root beers. There's several brands there that are all like top notch.
Good to know. Might have to go.
So Tucker, you did Sprecher first, then Boylan second, and then soda beers third. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. That's right. I had the same rankings.
Really?
Yeah. I love Boylan because it's so different. Like if someone is like, you know, they're not maybe newer to root beer. I like throwing this one in there as like this is different. Like to feel a minty aftertaste, like that's kind of weird. So I like throwing it in there, and it is one of it's probably in my top like 15 or 20 out of. Yeah, that sounds crazy, but I've tried like 200 root beers. But yeah, I feel the same way. Sprecher is like, it's like when you think of like a really good root beer, that's just it, and it's very smooth, very like, very normal, not out of the ordinary, just really, really good.
Just does it. There you go. So I guess that's my call to action number 1 is try to get your hands on some Spreckers.
Yeah, there we go.
Give it a taste.
Cool.
Check your dollar store.
Yeah, I feel like that was a master class in pitching options to a buying committee. So folks listening, pay attention, rewind, watch it again, take that. And
I know for calls to action, I often try to give like a little tidbit or get started, but I feel so fired up by your 3-stage funnel, AJ, that I do want to encourage folks, you know, if you're planning the next quarter or planning out a campaign, to really try that 3-stage funnel approach. Given the great results you've seen, it's something that I want to, you know, sharpen up and do a little bit more of myself. So I plan to do that. And I would, I encourage others to try that approach as well.
You want to close us out, AJ? What's your one call to action for the audience today?
Yeah, generally my call to action is try a 3-stage funnel. But Tucker, since you so lovingly stole that one from me, the one I'll sit on is like, we're finding the very highest performing ad on LinkedIn right now is a video thought leader ad. And that would be like a talking head video with the TikTok style captions that's 30 to 40 seconds long. So I would say find someone internally, whether it's the founder owner, or maybe you're a lowly marketer very far from them. Find someone else who's a good internal thought leader who would be willing to record a quick like tip, trick, strategy kind of video. Have them post that, then you can then sponsor it in your LinkedIn ads. And it is by far the highest performing ad on LinkedIn right now.
Love it. Absolutely. Can't agree with that more. Definitely. We see that too. So thank you, AJ. Thanks so much for coming on to the call to action today, sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. Definitely go check out AJ's show. He shares way more about this and a ton of to the high level, to the nitty gritty. Definitely like subscribe over there as well. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you, our viewers as well. How do you approach LinkedIn ads? Like, what are you seeing versus brand to conversion campaigns? What kind of thought leadership programs and types of content's working for you? Love to hear it. Share it in the comments. Connect with us on LinkedIn, of course. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Call to Action, and we'll see you on the next one.